All right, welcome to the October meeting for the Historic District Board of Review. To get things started, we'll have Brooke do roll call. It's all right.
Josh Wilbur,
Present.
Carol Ann Rogers. Here. Thomas Stark,
Here.
Owen McCall,
Here.
Mike Pittman,
Here.
and Sandy Palmer.
All right, everyone should have received the minutes for last month. Any changes, additions, questions? Hearing none, we'll take a motion.
Move to approve September's meeting minutes.
Second.
Hey, Brooke?
Thomas Stark,
Approve.
Carol Ann Rogers. Approve. Josh Wilbur,
Approve.
Owen McCall,
Approve.
and Mike Pittman.
Approve.
All right, tonight we actually have two applications to go through. The first one at 223, the application was incomplete, and the submitter of the application understands that, so we will not be going over 223 West 3rd Street. To go through the meeting and how it will go, just so everyone understands how these the meetings happen, I will call the name of the application, which is the address. Applicant will come up to the podium. Brooke will go over a summary of the application. The applicant will then, provide their name and address, or whoever comes to the podium representing the application. At that point in time, the board will ask questions of the applicant about the application, and then we will give a chance for the audience to speak for or against, or ask questions about the application as well. And then the board then goes through a findings of fact on it, and then a vote is taken. So it's a relatively simple process, especially if you do it as often as we do, but for those that are not used to it, understand there could be confusion. So for the first application tonight, it's 701 West 1st Street. Someone representing 701? Sure. All right, okay. Brooke, you want to go over the summary?
Come on, Monica. All right, this application has been filed by Tammy Hagemeyer. It is currently an empty lot, zoned heavy manufacturing M2. The COA request is to install shipping containers on the northeast and west corners of the property with a greater than 10-foot setback from all property lines. We have several images to go through. So images from 2022 first, and I will just go through these. This image is showing the delivery of some of the containers. An aerial view. Other images of the property currently. And then these images were pulled from 2013 for the most part, just to show differentiation. Another aerial, and that is all I have.
Okay. You want to state your name and address for us?
My name is Tammy Hagemeyer. My residential address is 2612 Franks, and I own Lantier Winery,
Okay.
Mulligan.
Terrence McCarthy, 112 East Main Street, Apartment 2.
Okay. Tammy, is there anything you'd like to add to what Brooke has stated so far?
Well, we use the shipping containers to move our inventory. It's my understanding there isn't really any regulation concerning moving inventory, but we have a couple different options that we can do. As you know, we wanted to put a building there, and that was to allow us easy movement of our inventory from our new production facility to our tasting room. That zoning, there was a zoning, something was wrong there, and they didn't want to allow us to build in that location, and we were told we could park there. That was the primary use that we were instructed to use it for, which is what we are using it for. We opted for the shipping containers for inventory control versus semis, which we thought would be, semi-trailers, which we thought would be more visually disruptive. We have always planned to do the landscaping. I talked with Brooke a couple times about that, and again today, she gave me some input. She's gonna be working with us with the arborist in town. I know some neighbors planted some trees, and that's really great of them, but the problem is the soil there is left over from the coal company. It's a really bad soil, so it's going to take more than just some planting. It will require some amending of the soil, selection of the right kind of trees, and a lot of watering. Unfortunately, we were really excited when they planted, but they lost the entire east side except for one tree, and most of the trees on the northern part of the property now on the city are extremely distressed, most likely from the drought, but I'm not real sure they're gonna make it either. We have not done any landscaping, not done any maintenance at all, just so everybody can kind of see what it's gonna look like. But our hope would be, our plan is, regardless of what we do, is to plant and landscape in collaboration with the city on that. That's where we stand. Terrence, do you have anything else? For those of you that don't know, Terrence is a new partner with us, and he will be taking over operation of the winery sometime in the future. We don't have a date yet, but he'll be the new owner for Lanthier Winery and Distillery.
Cool.
So we're transitioning in that process as we speak. Questions from the board,
All
or
right.
what do I need to do next?
We'll ask questions here, no problem,
Okay.
thank you. All right, any questions from the board?
Do you currently have a landscape plan that you mentioned? And what that would look like? What types of trees?
Well, my personal preference is, of course, flowering trees. We'll probably go with red buds. They're pretty good in that area, but we're gonna be working with the city arborist. And I do need to talk with Purdue University. That's my alma mater, but I've talked with them a couple of times, and I'm a master gardener through their master gardening program. So the soil, again, seems to be our biggest issue. We had planted red buds there, and they did really well. They don't give the screening that we wanted, or even originally, and so they suggested that we use forsythia bushes, which would provide both spring color and then some winter coverage, as well as some wildlife and bird coverage. We need to look at what's called a xeriscape, which is a very drought-tolerant planting, and so we'll be working with the city arborist on that. Now, that assumes that the north edge of the property, those evergreens, if they sustain, we would be delighted to have that. The only thing we would ask that we be able to do is put Christmas lights on them. That's all we would do. We have enough electric to be able to run lights to those. And so that'll provide a great screen on the north side. We would like to go back to what was originally there, and that was the red buds and the forsythia. They had done well there. Not sure, there's one maple tree that's really, really struggling right now, and it's just because of the way that soil is, all of those trees that used to be on there have always ended up on Mill Street for one reason or another. They just fall over or the wind knocks them. So it's not a real good area for deep-rooted trees.
So are you thinking in regards to the planting just around the peripheral, or are you also thinking of possibly placing them in that gravelled area as well?
What we would like to do with the gravel area, which is a xeriscape, and you'll find that on a different aerial, you'll see something very similar with our neighbors, the Ricketts. They used a stone wall where they brought in evergreens and overplanted with evergreens. We do not want it to look like, let's say, the city's wall that they have down on Jefferson Street and Vaughn. They have that same type of riprap, and they have not overplanted it. But we would like to see something there that would grow over and look a little bit better from our point of view, because the long-term, if I understand Terrence right, one of the things he would like to do once we can figure out moving inventory and things, once we get our new building open in Hanover, that area would also be used for events. So we have a vested interest in making it attractive from ground level as well.
So you talk about moving inventory, are you actually moving the shipping containers in and out? I mean, are they being changed in and out? Is that
We will have to move the shipping containers in and out from time to time, and then either that or semi-trailers. We today, Sunday, had to bring in pallets of wine from our storage area here in downtown Madison. And we use a small truck for that, but we are moving so much wine now, the business has grown so much that we need to be able to move in larger quantities. And our recent business expansion calls for a lot of wine to be moved between locations. So, Terrence has overseen the addition of the distillery. I'm not exactly sure how that all is gonna work out. But our options, we thought that the shipping containers were more acceptable because we will own the shipping containers and we were going to paint and add murals or something to them to make them more attractive to our guests for events. We thought that was a little bit better for us to do for us, but we can do, if you prefer, semi-trailers. They are gonna set up higher, and they can park there. That's, you know.
Okay.
I mean, we get it. We would rather have a building there. We really would, but without the building, we need to make use of that space, so. Anything else? I do want to announce that he's engaged.
Oh. Well, congratulations on two things.
Congratulations, yeah, Mulligan got engaged, yeah,
Took,
that's great news.
Took two
so.
stressful things at one time, though. I'm not sure about that. Other questions from the board?
How many trucks are you talking about coming in and out of that area?
Well,
And how often?
okay, so there's a couple different things. The alley in and of itself is a little tight. Where the city has the little bridge that goes over the culvert is adequate for a semi-trailer to pull in. We approached Mayor Courtney about the possibility of widening that when we were looking at a building there to make it easier for us to get semi-trailers in. We would probably be parking 4 to 5 back there, semi-trailers, and just, I don't really have any, I'm sorry, I don't really have an exact number for you, but I don't think we can fit more than 5 back there without it being very difficult to pull them out, because we'll bring them in and back them in and then pull them out either way, east to west.
So just the containers, not the semi-trailer, or both?
The containers are as you see them. I don't know that we will be adding another container back there. I know that we are moving the dumpster from the main parking lot back to this area back there so that we can allow more parking. If you've ever, like this weekend, if you were down at the winery, there was no place to park. They were on the street and over at the visitor center and everywhere else. So that will free up an additional 3 parking spaces if we move that there. We are adding a shipping container at our new location. And that'll be a 40-foot one? It's a 40-foot one. And so we'll be rotating back and forth. It's a little bit more time consuming, but we thought it was the better thing to do than semis going back and forth or sitting up. Semis, I think when we measured them, Brooke was, I think it was as like 6 to 7 feet in height. We were trying to keep it as low as possible. But I do think with the landscaping plan, visibility will be reduced to the point where it will be a moot point. It won't be visible from Mill Street.
So with the shipping containers, though, are you still using semis to transport?
They
In that area?
park on the street and
They
they
park-
bring in big fork trucks and they wiggle them
So
around and
taking them
then
around
take them out.
that way?
So I think, Brooke, did you get a picture of that when they were offloading?
I have this picture of showing them moving them with the forklifts that you're
Right.
discussing,
So they're actually picking the
They
shipping
pick 'em-
containers and putting them on the flatbed, basically,
Right.
right? Okay.
And they will do that from.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But-
Now, I think it was a little wet that day. They got their front tire stuck.
So if you get a lot of landscaping, that's gonna create how are you gonna make that work?
Okay, the landscaping is only gonna be on the stone wall and around the edges of the property. It will not be down in the
So-
gravel area.
So along the street in the gravel area, it's not gonna be.
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question, sir.
So when you take a shipping container, you put it on that, it's gonna be long, they're gonna be picking it up in the middle, just like the forklift is gonna do, so it's gonna have to be pretty wide for
Yeah,
them to get
they
it
do
out.
it on both ends. and then
Right.
they move it out like this.
Okay.
And then they take it to the street, and then they put it on the back of the semi. The semis will come in, back in, and drop the trailer. Pick up the trailer and pull out.
So looking at this picture, where are you thinking you would add the red buds and the forsythia?
Okay, on the east side of the property, where they were before, between us and the museum, you can kind of see there's a tree right there. Go back to the other picture, Terrence, suggest going back to the other picture.
More of the aerial.
There you go. Okay. So let me just, you want to come up or I'll show you? Let's see. Right in here. Okay, so we've landscaped right here with the crab apple and a couple other bushes and trees right here. We're gonna come right back down this way where we had them before. This is a red bud right here. These are forsythia bushes right here. We will continue red bud, forsythia, forsythia. The whole street then will have those spring color fall leaves in summer. Where we would have trouble and some visibility, we need a bush like a forsythia or some type of low evergreen that would help block that view.
Would you also be doing that then on the north side behind
Well,
the,
I think those are shadows right there. This green line right here is actually the evergreens. And
Right.
the neighbors have been generous enough to plant right down through here, but all but one of those died. So that I think it was partly the soil and maybe a little bit to do with planting. And I checked the other day and we've got a lot of browning problems up here, so we may end up landscaping for the city as well. This is all city property right here. So before I do anything, I have to have permission from the city. It'll be an investment on our part, but we're fine with that. We do recognize that if there was landscaping right now, we wouldn't be in front of you, because you wouldn't be able to see. And that's our goal, is we want to be able to make this an attractive area for us as well as for the community. All of these would be, painted and some type of mural or something put on them. And then this area right here, we would envision using for, some type of music event. That's not my area, that's more Terrence, you could talk about that. But that's how we see things working out. This will not be here, this is a dumpster that was placed specifically for our fall event for harvest. And then we pull that out each year, but we have to bring something in each year. And then the semis, if we have to bring them in, will come like this,
That's what I was wondering.
and then they'll swing around
Okay,
and swing around. and
that's
swing
what I
around
was
and
wondering.
swing around. Now, when otherwise they park on the street in the flatbed, and they bring two big fork trucks in, and they wiggle it off, bring it in, spin it around, that kind of thing. But we know that the shipping containers sit substantially lower than the semis. I can't promise you, I feel very comfortable with the containers, that we can hide the containers. I cannot promise you that with the semis. They're gonna set up quite a bit higher. And for us, we'll put them in if that's what you want us to do, but it makes it a little bit more difficult for us to do any type of event or anything out there other than just parking. And we prefer to make as maximum use of the property as we can. So we'll be talking with the city arborist, and, like I said, I've been talking with Purdue for quite some time now, and their Master Garden program. Anything else?
I have a question. I have a question for you. Because I wasn't here initially, when this all started, I have a question. Was it your intent to put the shipping containers there when you had the hole dug?
The shipping containers were already there. Two of the shipping containers were already there, and we were using them to move things back and forth. Now, the problem with the shipping containers being there before and you can tell from one of the pictures, before we put new gravel in, was that they sink in that ground over there. That pit has always been there. The hole was always dug, and you can't really see that because of the debris coverage. But that was a coal pit, so the ground was very unstable and very soft, and so we had trouble with shipping containers. And one of the photos that you have actually show one of the big fork trucks stuck
Okay.
in that, and then they had to bring down a big giant wrecker to pull it out. So that's a real issue. That's one of the reasons why you see the shipping containers placed strategically right now along the edge, because those are higher and drainage is meant to come down toward the alley. We've looked at all of that.
Okay. now-
Thank you.
Thank you, I understand that. But when you dug out all the way around, you made it very square, as though you're going to build a building there. Did you have an intention to build a building, or was it always going to be shipping containers?
We didn't have the only time we had an intention to build a building was when we made a proposal to put the building there. The shipping containers would have been a moot point because we would have had a building there. And they would have been either underneath, the building that we proposed, or we would have had some type of storage on that ground level that allowed us to meet ATT requirements and secure alcohol or spirits at that level. So.
Okay, so the intent was always to do exactly what you're doing now, using these units. They're going to
If we couldn't
stay
have a
there.
building, yes. If we didn't have a building, we have no choice but to move those containers, and now that we have to take inventory and move inventory,
Right?
we had to
And I
modify
understand
things.
what you're saying about the movement of the inventory. My question is, will there ever be a building there?
Under the current administration, that is not likely. We asked for that permit, we were denied a zoning setback. They did not want it, and we were told by the mayor we could use it for parking. So here we are. We would like to have a building there. If someone wants to reconsider that, there's still an option for another expansion, but that won't likely happen for 5 years. In the meantime, my business is growing by leaps and bounds, and we need to move our inventory and manage what we're doing. I mean, we're zoned industry. I appreciate the fact that it's difficult. We have some neighbors with a beautiful home. They moved into the area. Their home was actually zoned industry before they changed it to residential, but it's an industrial area. And we're very proud of the fact that we took a very, very damaged piece of property, contaminated land, and a building that no one else would have, and we've turned it into the largest for-profit private tourism destination in the community. We're very proud of that. We take our responsibility seriously. We own several other historic properties, so this is important to our business. We just need to know what your guidance is on it.
Well, and we thank you for that. I guess my questions go back to you were before the board almost a year ago, and you changed from what you had approved to, I assume you're not going to do the...
And I understand that question because
Well, let me finish.
Go ahead.
I assume you're not going to do the wall, is that correct?
we are not.
Okay.
The reason we aren't is because the vote was essentially 2-2, as I recall, and it was very clear to us that the board did, at least some of the board members did not want that, and it was basically, we got permission to do that on a technicality, and that was not over our head, guys. We understood that. So we still needed to do something to stabilize that, and we lost a lot of land doing it this way. And it's very expensive for us to do it this way, but that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna zero-scape this, and we're gonna make it lovely, we're gonna make it work, and we're gonna paint those containers, and it's going to be both an inventory movement location for us, a logistics place for us, as well as Terrence is organizing the events. I don't know if that's gonna happen this year, but I'm pretty sure it happens in 2024. I've seen the plan.
Well, you have a very beautiful winery down there.
Thank you.
And the issues I'm concerned with are the placement of the riprap. As you said, that land is rather soft.
It is really soft.
And what did you do to prepare the lot to put the riprap down?
Okay. Dunlap advised us on that, and they brought in a special fabric for that. A couple of things that we did have to do. A neighbor had taken their downspouts, and part of the problem with water on that north, especially the northwest corner, was that we had downspouts draining like a waterfall into that property. So we dealt with that issue, and our neighbors were cooperative on that and did take responsibility to move their downspouts off. And so we stopped that water flow. Dunlap came in, Schneider Trucking, a big special fabric. I wish I could tell you exactly what that is, but I didn't do the engineering, I just paid the bill. So, it is stable now and we're in good shape, but I don't, even though it's used a lot throughout the community, you'll see it at, the Tack Factory, down here. They've used it for landscaping purposes. It's all along their west side, down by the sewer plant. It's very lovely. They've done a great job with it. You'll see the city uses it in a couple places, and as I said, down on Jefferson Street, and Vaughn Drive, they've used it. And, if you can sit on Vaughn Drive and you can look directly to the east from that same location, and you'll see a yard that has riprap on it. I'm not fond of the riprap look, but, you know, I think that the Ricketts have done a good job. They didn't use riprap, they just used regular, some type of gravel that they use that was smaller, a little bit less expensive, but they planted evergreens over that, low-growing evergreens, junipers. And I think those look kind of nice. They've also added some red buds back there, so that's nice to have neighbors doing that. But, you know, I'd like to see something on it, and if it's not gonna be a low-growing juniper, I imagine it's going to be some type of perennial xeriscape that will give us very heat and drought tolerant for that. We're not having the moisture problem that we had before. We threw the riprap, and the drainage from the west side has been dealt with. So we're not seeing any problems with that, except where we have not been able to put the gravel yet, which is now where you see kind of some mulch. You guys issued a stop work order, so we didn't move any more gravel or do anything else.
What about the land itself? Are you aware it's in the flood zone?
Yeah, you know, that's very interesting. I know that this board really feels strongly about that. A couple members do. And I've kind of hesitated to talk about that because that's not really something I think this board directly deals with, but I'm happy to talk about that. I did meet with the city's floodplain manager, and I showed him what we dealt with the state. And I said, you know, if you're trying to hold us to a standard, you've got a problem, because the lumber mill's in a more restrictive floodplain, and you just built condos in a floodplain down there. So what is regulated by DNR and what is not regulated by DNR was really the question. And what hazard do we assume when we have our containers there? I have the flood maps just in case you want to take a look at them. But the city floodplain manager has already signed off on all of that. And so maybe that might be a good place to start. I'm not sure. I mentioned it to Brooke sometime back, so.
Well, our city ordinance states that any structure which your containers would classify as a structure have to be at least 2 feet above the base flood elevation.
And which flood elevation are you referring to,
Base
sir?
flood elevation.
I'm sorry.
The base flood elevation,
Uh-huh.
and
Are you talking the flood plain, the
The flood
100 or the
fringe.
500?
the flood fringe, where
Okay.
your containers are located.
Right. That, according to DNR and your floodplain manager and the documents I have, we're not in any hazard area. So I think until maybe the flood guy, it's my understanding that he already clarified all that and he already took care of all of that.
Well, I have the floodplain map here if you'd like to see mine.
Okay.
And basically, you're about 4 to 5 feet under our base flood elevation in that lot.
Okay. I'm not sure what you're looking at or where your lines are for the lot. I know I have similar maps. What I can tell you again is, you know, I'm a little caught here because the historic board doesn't have any oversight for floodplain management.
Well, it would,
But-
it would impact the view of your containers, because basically you would have to raise your containers up with compacted fill up to the base flood elevation plus 2 feet, according to city ordinance.
Okay, so again, I'm really stuck here because what I'm going to tell you is that your floodplain person that we spoke with, Landon is I think his name, is that correct? Landon? I spoke with Landon at length. I said, let's take a look at this. Let's make sure we're okay. What I have from DNR says we are okay. He came back and he told me, oh, yeah, no problem. It's all okay. So I would, I'm not sure what to say other than that's where I'm at with it. I've been told we don't have a problem. So
Well,
base flood is different from 100 or 500-year floodplain. And maybe that's where the language is a little bit different.
well, this document's very plain. You need a floodplain permit from,
I think the document you are looking at is the same one that the DNR looked at,
yes.
and they were very clear to us that there was no risk to us, and Landon, your floodplain manager, was very clear to us that there was no issue.
Well, our experience here in Jefferson County, unfortunately, we had a surprise flood not too long ago in the county, and I can tell you, it's not a problem till it's a problem, and the state's very serious about these floodplain maps. And I would encourage you to look at the one that's sitting here and take a look at it, and I will discuss it with Landon just to be sure he
Okay.
understands what it
And
is.
I just want to be real clear here. Lanthier Winery is the first business in downtown Madison to go underwater every time there's a flood.
Yes,
We flooded in '97, and again we have all our flood records. So we are very familiar with flood hazard and what it can mean for our business, and yet we continue to operate our business in downtown Madison and continue to maintain that. We have significant experience with floodplain management and with dealing with floods and flood waters, to the extent that many of our different elected officials reach out to us for help and assistance when there might be flood issues. And we've been assisting with some county things here recently with folks who've had some flood impact. So we're very understanding about that, and we appreciate your concern for our business. I'm just really stuck here. I really am glad that you care. It's just that I'm not sure what you want me to do if we've talked with the state DNR, who has been very clear with us. Pretty much, they've told us this 2 or 3 times now. Why do we keep calling? And Landon, who when we told him that, said he would check himself. And then he did, and he followed up. My best advice is just check with them, and if something has changed that we aren't aware of in the last 3 months, give us a call. If you want us to raise it up 2 feet, we'll raise it up 2 feet. That may or may not be the same as raising it up 5 or 6 feet on the back of a semi. I'm like you, I really don't want it to be that visible. And if we can leave it where it's at, we'll leave it where it's at. If not, we don't want to get that wet either. We do not want to lose millions in inventory to floodwaters. And we work hard at planning so that those containers can be moved easily at certain times of the year. We will not be loading them heavily, I can guarantee you, in January and February, when there when there is a higher risk of flood in late February, early March. And we watch snowpack and all of that. So we're not going to put a situation in there where we can't get our $1 million worth of inventory out of there.
well, I appreciate that, and I think you're wise. I think
Thank
the other issue is the state really does not have control of the flood fringe, so you would not get any feedback from them. Really, it's up to us. And part of our role is to make sure that when we're talking about what you're planning to do there, the visibility doesn't impact the surrounding historic area.
Sure.
And that's why I bring it up. I mean, to me, I saw the flood damage you guys have had down there. You've
Right.
had quite a bit. And the other concern DNR has, though, with enforcing this particular area, as well as enforcing local governments to enforce it, is the downstream impact. And how big are your containers?
20, 40, and
20-foot by 8-foot, 30-foot by 8-foot.
Well, they had a 20-foot wall of water coming down Brushy Creek that put cars in trees, trucks in trees, bent them around trees. So imagine what they do with a container and pick it up and shove it down to
Right.
some of our historic
I
homes.
think when
So
you're-
to me,
yeah, you're
That
talking a
is a real
500-year
concern.
plus floodplain.
well, that piece of property puts you in a situation where we need to have at least those buildings 2 feet above our base flood elevation. So if you can compact your lot to that point,
Well, we've actually raised it substantially from what it used to be.
well,
So I'd
based
have
on.
to get the actual numbers for you. Let me make sure I've got the same maps that you're talking about. Pretty sure it is. Yeah, it's the exact same. So we're right here.
What's your base flood elevation?
Yeah,
It should be over here.
it's right over here. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, 459. Yeah, that's it.
And we're,
And your base, your base flood elevation is 463.3.
Right.
You need to be 2 feet above
yeah,
that.
but we are on where because we added so much gravel back here. But I'm not sure what you're addressing, because when we talk about flood plains and where things are and what's where,
I'm familiar with that.
okay.
Yeah.
So that's,
But that also says you need a local floodplain permit.
again, I'm really sorry. I think that's something that,
Well, it impacts your
Probably-
visibility. It impacts your visibility, and
I agree.
if you got an elevation, if you have an elevation certificate from a surveyor, that would show that that's there.
I appreciate all of that. I'm not sure what to tell you. Again, we have worked with the city floodplain manager on that, and we're okay. I
Okay.
mean, I have an email, I did not bring it with me today, I regret that, but I do have an email that says, no problem, so.
So right
But
now,
if you
we're
want us
going to
to
move
throw-
past the
yeah, if you
flood,
want
because,
me
I
to
mean,
throw
he's
in
brought up
more
a point,
gravel, I
so
will.
that's, the point's been raised, so
Yeah.
it's on record.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions from the board on other issues? All right, so we're going to have time for the audience, if anyone from the audience wants to come up and speak for or against.
And I would just like to reserve,
Yes.
in case there's some question or some comments that need to be made, my attorney, Tony Castor, is here this evening, in case he needs to speak on something. Would
Okay,
that be okay?
not a problem.
Thank you.
Come up, state your name and address for us.
Why? Ken McWilliams, 315 Poplar. And I'm really surprised this application has even made it this far. So I was on the board a year ago when this family first brought the application for the wall to protect the property. And the board made a motion for engineered concrete wall. And there should be a change in procedures that when a family ignores a motion, that they can't bring a new motion to the board until they address the first motion. The second point is back to Mike, it's the DNR, is the floodplain. There's way confusion between the board and the family, and that needs to be addressed before there's a vote. So this vote needs to be, you need to table this application or reject it out of hand. Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience want to come up and speak? Yep, go ahead.
My name is Charles Ricketts. I live at 707 West First Street with my wife, Mary Pat. I thank Ken for asking that question. I didn't know he was going to, but I had the same question to ask. Was if you change after you get a certificate of appropriateness, shouldn't you come back to the board? And I think that was answered yes. So, my wife and I, we live next door to the lot in this application. And for the benefit of the audience, many of whom I think this would be their first meeting, I would like to point out some of the important points that the board takes under consideration. You have what I would call rules or laws, you call them provisions. So first, under provision 15101, the purpose of the board, why are you here? The historic area is of great importance to the social, economic, and general welfare of the city and should be protected. I'm reading that from your rules. The intent of establishing this board is to protect the district's natural and man-made heritage, to stabilize and improve property values within the district, to foster civic beauty and improvements, and to promote the use of the historic district for the education, pleasure, welfare of the citizens, state, and nation in accordance with the regulations set forth in these provisions. Now, the lot in question, as you can see from the pictures, is one block from our crown jewel, Lanier Mansion State Memorial. It's across the street from Madison's History Center, the Railroad Museum, and the city's Welcoming Center. By the way, I sat on my porch and I watched all the tour buses from the riverboat come right up Mill Street, and they look, and that's the first thing they see. To the northeast of Mill Street, and straight up the north and on the west, are all single-family residences. Provision 151.05 covers zoning regulations. And here it states that whenever there's a conflict between regulations of the city's zoning rules and the rules of the historic zones, the more restrictive rule shall apply. I believe that's right. So, last year in July 2021, the Board of Zoning Appeals, which was referred to earlier, denied an application to build a distillery on this lot. The BZA, Board of Zoning, ruled that the winery expansion clearly did not fit zoning regulations in terms of lot setbacks. But, more importantly perhaps, the proposal to expand manufacturing and warehousing at the site, zoned heavy manufacturing, was probably contrary to a city trend towards converting more sites zoned manufacturing in downtown Madison into residential housing and parklands, as opposed to the coal yards and scrap yards before they went out of business and the land was reclaimed. Now, the city's zoning ordinance cited at that meeting was 6.23A3, and it clearly states no building, no structure, no land within 100 feet of a residential district shall be used in connection with the operation of any establishment The ordinance requires 100-foot setback, and the lot in question is only 90 feet wide. So I ask how the board can issue a certificate of appropriateness when the city's zoning ordinance is more restrictive. It shouldn't even be before this board. You 5 members, normally 7, will decide if this request is indeed appropriate. Now, we call this a certificate of appropriateness, so let's examine the word appropriateness. It means, according to Webster's dictionary, especially suitable or compatible. The word compatible then means capable of existing in harmony. And further on, harmony means the pleasing arrangement of the parts. So this request is about steel containers the size of semi-trailers, the kind you often see stacked by the hundreds on ocean-going vessels. Do you believe these steel containers fit the definition of appropriateness and blend harmoniously into our historic district? Under provision 151.30, the board must consider the compatibility with the neighborhood, meaning, can it exist together in harmony? Further on, under provision 15134, the board must consider what effect the visual characteristics have on the historic area, meaning, is it something that appeals to the site? It's obviously incongruous with this historic district. Under provision 15148, the duties of the building inspector. We see this as a very powerful position. It states, under finding violations, the inspector shall order discontinuance of any work being done involving the violation. The inspector can, if necessary, ask the chief of police for assistance in enforcing the order. Now, going back to March of this year, March of 2022, the applicants were notified in writing of the violations. 4 months later, in July, a second notice was sent about the violations. In August, another notice was sent and a stop work order was issued. But work continued until it was complete. Later on in September, 2 more containers were brought onto the lot, as you can see. Now, a stop work order, for those not familiar with it, means just what it says on the order. It shall be unlawful to continue any work without permission from the Madison City Plan Commission office. Shall means mandatory in lawyer speak. So in conclusion, we are requesting that the board deny the application for a certificate of appropriateness and require that the lot be cleared in accordance with zoning ordinance 6.23 and other provisions that we have cited. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to express our opinion and viewpoint.
Thank you, Charles.
I'm Dean Miller. I own the Lumber Mill Antique Mall at 721 West First. I listened with great interest when Ms. Hagemeyer went through all of the plans that she had. And my question to her is, where were these plans and were they shared with anybody? I'm an adjacent landowner. Were they shared with anybody before she dug the hole and defoliated the area? I think if there had been some pre-planning, things might have gone a little smoother. I can't understand how moving containers in and out of that area fits the idea of historic Madison. This is a manufacturing operation. It's not a historic operation. And I would note that they have to expand the alley because Ms. Hagemeyer has encroached on the alley. So I don't think that this is a business that the winery is well taken care of. It is appropriate for the setting. But all of this inventory control seems a little out of bounds. And they have a facility in Hanover, which is a large structure. Do your inventory control out there. But I'll leave it to you all.
Hi, I'm Helen Birch. I live at 512 Craigmont Street. Just a couple of questions. I've just been back in Madison. I was born and raised here, just been back a few years. But I was confused with the removal of the foliage. I thought they were going to remove a little, and they removed all of it. Don't understand that, especially if the ground is contaminated. And as far as the neighbors graciously planting trees, it's because their trees were killed. Their sprinkler system was exposed and their PVC pipes. So I think that it went past just clearing a little bit of foliage out. So they are good neighbors. You do have the storage facility in Hanover, which you're 10 minutes away or whatever. I don't understand why that can't be brought in as needed. I don't understand the need for a area to contain a lot of inventory just in Madison. And especially, like the other gentleman said, if this was done against the original, it wasn't granted that they do this, and then it was done anyway, why are we even looking at trying to go forward with plans that were originally denied, but defied the order and did what they wanted to do anyway? The only other thing I want to say is that I love Madison. That's why I came back to it. And it makes me very sad that there are people who use intimidation and bullying to get what they want just because they want it and they think they deserve it. So I hope you consider everything that's been going on. And for those who go by the rules, that we have some justice or whatever you want to call it for those of us who try to play for the rules and make downtown Madison the historic area that it should be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sue Langdon, and I've been a member of Madison for 3 years, moved here from Indianapolis. I am a
Can you state your
business-
address for us?
Oh, I'm sorry, 626 West Main Street. I own the business, the Derma Bar, at the corner of Mill and Main Street, and love downtown Madison. I'm just coming here unbiased as a person that wants to say that I have a lot of clients that come in, and we're just down the street from the winery, and in the past I've even recommended people can go to that winery, but I have clients all the time coming in saying, oh my God, what happened down there? And I don't know what to explain to them. I don't want to tell them that this is a permanent thing for Madison, but I do get clients that come in and have recognized they're visitors to Madison. They're coming in from Louisville and Cincinnati, over in Kentucky. I get people from all over, and I can't tell you how many times, that's why I'm here tonight, that I've had people come in and say, what has happened down there? So thank you.
Any other comments in the audience?
Just wanted to quickly address, we landscaped. We didn't put in a retaining wall. I did get a letter from Mr. Jenner asking us to build a retaining wall. We opted not to do that. I want to be real clear that what we did was landscape, like you see throughout the community. That was a substantial investment on our part, but we didn't violate anything that the board told us to do or not do. The retaining wall we could have built, but basically, again, that was on a glitch. You didn't really want that. We opted to landscape. We weren't required to come back and get permission to landscape. In terms of visibility from the road, again, I know that that's what everyone is concerned about, or some people are concerned about. It is a matter of time for us to solve that problem. We could put in a fence, but that was something that no one else wanted either. So the problem that we're stuck with here is We have containers downtown. Other people have containers downtown. We're not sure why you're selectively enforcing, or some people think we should or shouldn't be able to do what other people in the community are able to do. The reason you have buses driving down Mill Street, it's not to go to the dog park, it's to go to Lanthier Winery. Our gardens are lovely, and again, we are an important destination in the community. And while we don't bring in a lot of people to speak on our behalf, I assure you that our business would not be successful without the support of this community. We have a lot of support and a lot of concern for how we have been treated. And I can't really explain that to anyone. I don't know why I get a letter threatening me about floodplains. I try to be very cooperative about that. And what I'm going to ask you to do to avoid any embarrassment for anyone is table it so that I can show you the email from Mr. Landon that my attorney just showed me this evening he carries with him, so that you can see that we've done everything the way we're supposed to do it. And we are trying to be a very good neighbor. The hole in the ground was there. We didn't dig it. We got rid of the homeless and the drugs and the copperheads and the debris that was being dumped there. I understand Mr. and Mrs. Ricketts are extremely saddened by what has happened. We did go to our neighbors. We did offer to pay for trees. I have a letter from Mr. Ricketts that when he first denied us paying for the trees, then asking us to pay for the trees. I have that documented where we talked with our immediate neighbors. I really, truly regret that no one talked to Mr. Miller. He's been very kind to us over the years. He's a nice gentleman. We should have thought to do that, and we just did not. It was an oversight on our part. We focused mainly on Mr. Hollis and Mr. Ricketts. And so we don't mean to offend anyone in the community. We've worked hard to do that, but rather than stand here and continue to say these issues have been dealt with, we are within what everybody tells us we need to do. I don't want a situation where I get a letter about us replacing wooden windows with vinyl when I have to come in and quietly say, hey, look, we probably don't want to have this conversation in public because here's the bill for vinyl replacing vinyl. You know, I don't want to have those conversations. I think the historic board has enough difficulty as it is without someone standing up and having to dispute everything that you think you have. I just don't think you have all the information. So I would like for you to table it so that my attorney can be in touch and provide you all the information that you need. Some of the things that have been brought up this evening by neighbors, they would not be expected to know. They're just neighbors. They hear what they hear. Some are rumors, and that's okay. They don't have to like us. We still refer to the Derma Bar. We'll still try to be good neighbors. But I really don't want to stand here and start passing out documents without you folks having had a chance to take a look at them. If you want to do that, I would respectfully ask Mr. Castor to stand if you're not willing to table.
So the request from the applicant is for us to table this for another month. Does the board have any issue tabling this so we can gather more information from the applicant?
I would like to see the applicant make a good faith effort to not put any more containers and perhaps remove the container she's got in there as a show of good faith.
I can't remove right now, but I can guarantee you that we will not. The only scheduled container that we have will go to Hanover, Indiana. And to be honest with you, a lot is happening with railroads and logistics for containers and things like that. So we may or may not even get the container out in Hanover. But I can promise you nothing else will be added to that lot, and I will keep that commitment. And we will not add to that lot till this issue is resolved. If you ask me to remove them, I will, and this is a part I don't understand. If I have to bring in semi-trailers, I'm not sure any amount of landscaping is going to solve that problem back there. But I can park semi-trailers back there. I can use that for parking. And I'm trying to work with you. I really am.
Okay, so the matter at hand is tabling the application. Does the board have any concerns tabling this application for,
We just need a motion.
all right. Yeah,
Okay.
do we have a motion?
Okay. And how do I just have Mr. Castor reach out to someone, or what do I do?
So,
Does he reach
Mr.
out to
Casper,
them?
if you got documents that you think would
can-
help the board.
Tammy, Mr. Castro
Then-
knows how to get a hold of me.
Yes, I'm gonna say, that's exactly where I was headed with it, so he can send to the city attorney.
Making sure I got the right attorney
My
with the
fault.
right person.
Yes,
Okay.
Devin. Okay, go ahead.
I move that we table the application of Tammy Hagemeyer until the November meeting.
Second it.
Brooke,
Josh Wilbur,
approve.
Thomas Stark,
Approve.
Owen McCall,
Approve.
Mike Pittman,
Approve.
and Carol Ann Rogers.
Do not approve.
So this will be tabled for another month till the November meeting. And then all documents can be exchanged between the city attorney and your attorney. And then our city attorney will decide what we're able to see before then. All right, thank you, Tammy. And thank you for the audience and your input into that application as well. All right, our next of course, as soon as I do this. Our next application is 403 West Second Street. Brooke?
This application has been made by Ryan Rogers regarding a circa 1925 colonial revival. It is a contributing structure zoned Historic District Residential. The COA request is to construct a roof section to cover the existing porch, add concrete pad, and replace a wood window with a three-quarter light door. The application has been modified since it was first filed, just to make note of that publicly. This is a picture of the rear of the home where the proposed roof structure will be built. You can also see drawings as well. Now, the modification, I will show here in just one moment, but this was the original submission. The modification is to go ahead and extend that new roof section out by an additional 6 feet. So instead of 11'4", it would be 17'4". And that is all I have.
You state your name and address, sorry.
Ryan Rogers, 804 East First Street, Madison.
All right, you got your wife with you, is it?
Sure.
No? I don't.
This is Debbie though.
It's
I'm
Debbie,
Debbie
okay.
Squires, I'm the homeowner.
Okay,
Rosemary
sorry,
West
Ryan.
Second.
Ryan, Kelly's not gonna
I
like
don't know.
this. You're in trouble, Ryan, again.
It's on record now, you're on film, so I'm not sure what you're gonna go home to. Anything more to add to the application?
I just wanted to state that there is currently an awning that covers the existing porch, and the awning is compromised. It has a couple of small tears in it and lots of pinholes. I mean, so any water that comes from rain, the porch gets wet. So in looking at trying to replace the canvas awning, I just thought it might be better to put a permanent structure over that to,
How big is the canvas awning? Is it as big as what's being
the
proposed,
existing
or?
porch is 10 by 12. It's 12 feet wide and 10 feet deep.
Okay, so it's 10 feet, so you're asking for 17, so you're asking about 7'4" more than what you have now, right?
Right.
Can
So,
you go
but,
back
I
to
mean-
the side view? The east, yeah. Yeah, so,
Now,
go.
If I may, I'm sorry, I don't
Yeah,
mean
yeah.
to interrupt. This is one of the original renderings given for the application. So the existing blue section that is highlighted there for the new porch roof, it's going to be extended 6 feet out, more than that. So if I have my bearings correctly, the house faces, if it's on West Second, the house is facing north, so this would be on the opposite end of the house, the southern end of the home.
This is the east elevation.
Sorry,
Right.
I'm sorry,
Right.
I'm
It's not the
I'm mixed up,
primary
sorry.
facade, it's just, it's the side.
along Broadway. Yeah,
So
sorry.
it looks like you're connecting, correct me if I'm wrong, from the back addition where the fireplace is, a shed roof, I'm guessing, all the way up to the front part of the house, is that correct? It's not a gabled roof.
No, it's just a shed roof that's tying into the existing roof that's there.
It'll
It's filling the
continue,
gap.
Right.
basically where the canvas awning is, it'll continue all the way back underneath the gutter? Is that where,
Yes.
okay. And how far, will it come out further east than the front section?
It will,
By how many feet?
6 feet.
6 feet, yeah.
Okay. And I'm just curious, why did you decide to bring it out 6 more feet? You're not extending the porch, are you?
No, the porch will stay the same, and there are steps that lead from the street up to the side. And it was to actually I decided to bring it out further so that it wouldn't interrupt with the steps that are already there. So there are large stone steps, and
Do you
in
want
order
to,
to.
you want to go up and kind of refer to it, kind of point to where you're talking about
Yeah.
on the picture? It helps sometimes.
So these are all stone steps,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to compromise those at all.
Okay.
So in order to if I bring it out further, then I won't have to compromise those steps at all. So I'd like to put a post here and one here and then over at the house, or yeah, at that side, the stone front of the house.
So 3 posts, wooden posts, I assume?
Actually, they want to have something custom fabricated by the metal shop up here.
Oh, ironworks?
Yeah,
Okay,
they want it to match the fencing.
okay.
Because the retaining wall and the iron fence are all original to I think the 1800s house.
It's got to, yeah,
So I want to keep that, and these are black poles that are there, they're just like pipe that's been painted black. And I'd like to tie it in better with the iron fence.
and the material of the roofing will be shingled?
That's what I put out as shingle, but she's also considering a metal roof. The only reason I didn't put that on the application is I wanted to get a budget for her first. before-
Yeah.
It looks like a pretty low grade, so I mean, if it was an asphalt roof, I'm guessing you might have trouble with leaking.
It's going to be a 312 pitch, which you can do a modified install and make that meet the warranty requirements. Metal roof would be better, but we haven't priced it yet, so I didn't want to put her on the hook for that.
Hey, you could do a copper standing seam roof like Sullivan did.
Well, I wouldn't mind the copper look,
Yeah,
but if,
yeah,
you know.
yeah, I know. There is that, right?
She's going to Ironworks to get Postmates, so she's
Yeah, that's great.
making an investment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they do
I know
great
that.
work. You'll be very happy with their work.
So you're not really sure yet. Shingles is on the application, and so if you do want to change to a metal roof, you'd have to come back.
I believe I can get that as.
Unless it's standing, or you don't, if you go standing seam, you're okay.
Right.
Yeah, but
Right.
if you want to try to go a different metal
If
roof.
it's metal, it's gonna have the copper color.
Okay, so the standing
'cause I
seam,
think
you would
that
be,
would be-
you could easily change.
I like the look of that, you
Okay.
know.
It
Yeah.
aged beautifully.
It would probably look really good.
So, we normally don't like to see openings changed, like historic windows to doors or taking out a door. I mean, I'm sure you have a reason you'd like to have a door there, but would you consider leaving that window as is?
Well, my thoughts were if the roof is extended all the way over to the stone part of the house, then I could utilize that whole area out there as an outdoor area.
There is no yard space in this house,
Yeah, it's tight.
and the access to the side yard is from the living room up front.
Yeah,
So everything in the kitchen or the back of the house, you gotta go all the way around. So if she adds that other door, it gives her just better flow. And, I've got a good stonemason, it'll look like it's always been there.
Now, when this gets added, is it, would you consider it permanent, or would you consider if you were to take it back off, the house, the original structure would be fine? It wouldn't be,
It can be taken back off, but it's pretty permanent. I mean, it's.
yeah,
It'll be framed just like any other roof.
okay.
The metal post will be unique, but other than that, it'll be standard construction.
I guess my question goes to that, when the original building, normally if you take a, you know, a piece of, I say not temporary structure, but new structure built to it, you could go back to the original building relatively
definitely
easily.
go back.
Not easily, but you could.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I have one last question. I see the original porch and on the east elevation of what you hope it to look like. What is that? Is that like a hot tub in there between the house and the porch? I don't see on the photograph, I see an open space, and there I see some sort of a deck or hot tub, or, you see what I'm saying? The area?
She don't want everybody to know she has a hot tub.
I'd like to have just like a patio space to start with, just so I can have, because there's no outdoor yard whatsoever.
So you want to be able to step up from the original porch to that new platform area?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you have an outside unit, like a heating air unit right there in the
I
corner?
believe there is, we would need to be moving
I was gonna say, so where are you
What is it?
moving it?
the compressor for the.
Right in the corner.
It's on the other side.
Right there.
So that's a basement window then, I'm guessing a lower level
Oh,
window?
okay, it looks like a unit
Yeah,
from here,
yeah.
okay.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It
Yeah,
looks kinda like a unit. Okay, so that's a window, all right, no big deal.
See, it's a window,
Okay, my fault,
or as they say, where
You're good.
A window.
a window. Okay. Any other questions from the board?
No.
Questions, concerns from the audience? All right, hearing none. Tom, you want to take us through findings of fact?
Sure,
All right.
let me get there. It's on page.
68.
So can I, let's see. You want me to do them separately, right?
With the additions and then the door?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So in planning additions, the best approach is to side additions where they will not be visible from the street or where they will have the least effect on the building's overall form and plan. The rear of the buildings is the best locations for additions, rooms, wings, porches, decks. Enlarging a property through adding additional stories is not appropriate except at the rear roof line, which is not readily available. Well, obviously, you're on a corner, and you have very limited space, so you cannot go back, any further unless you want to be in your neighbor's yard. So, it is going to be seen from the street. However, it does mimic what you currently have there. It's just a larger size. Additions to historic homes should be located at the rear of buildings, not on the front or the sides of the building. I think we've already covered that. Additions should be secondary, smaller, simpler. Well, I mean, it's a porch cover, so it's obviously smaller, simpler than the original building in scale and design. Additions should be compatible, of compatible design in keeping with the original building's design, shape, materials, color, location of windows, doors, and cornice heights. I would say that, the roof that you've described that you'd like to go with is in compliance with this guideline, and also working with Madison Iron to develop new posts that tie in with the original iron fence. The one thing that I did bring up, which is, changing a window into a door, a historic window into a door, although I do understand the flow issue that you mentioned. Additions should not imitate an earlier historic style or architectural period, and it doesn't. It basically mimics the canvas awning that you currently have up there. The recommended approach is for additions to reflect characteristics of the current period and design, but compatible with the original building. I think what you have planned does comply with that guideline. To avoid extensive removal, damage, or loss of historic materials, additions should be kept at the exterior walls of the original building as intact as possible, which you're doing, and use existing door and window openings for connecting the addition to the building. So I think for the most part, the construction of the addition is in compliance, or at least partially in compliance. Covering the lower level of a window does not follow our guidelines. However, I understand, the need for wanting a little more patio space or space to entertain. Windows should be preserved. That does not meet our guidelines. And then the roof located is smaller and simpler, and it's compatible with the existing design that you currently have. So I feel that that does meet the guidelines.
Owen?
Can I make a comment about the window? That is a newer addition. I don't know when it was built.
Yeah.
It's probably in the 1940s, 50s, something like that. So it is historic, but it's not the same as the original house.
I feel I agree with everything that Thomas said.
Mike?
I agree for the same reasons.
Carol Ann?
I agree.
And I agree for the same reasons. I think that, the point on the window, I mean, I know we've had some windows get turned into doors, from this board that we have approved in the past. It's not something we necessarily like to do because then that really does change the characteristics of the home. And if it does change it from being a historical part of it, then that, is a big deal to us because then you may have lost your, a historic home in Madison because it's been changed drastically. So I'm not sure that that's the case here with where it's located, even though you can see, I'm not sure if that will actually change that appearance and take it away from being historic, in nature. That's just my opinion.
It's not the primary facade.
Right. True. So with that, do we have a motion on this? Yes, everybody's been through.
I move to approve the COA for Ryan Rogers at is that 604? 804.
403. It's
403.
Actually, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
One of those addresses.
403 West Second Street for the new construction of a porch roof and, concrete pad, as well as modifying a lower level window in the east elevation and changing a a window to a door and entrance on the back portion of the house.
I second.
Brooke?
Mike Pittman,
Approve?
Carol Ann Rogers. Approve. Owen McCall,
Approve.
Thomas Stark,
Approve?
and Josh Wilbur.
Approved. So you will get your COA in the mail. You can begin work as long as you have the proper building permits. So,
Thank you very much.
thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we go on to new business. Is there any new business? I'm afraid to go to the next one now. All right, no new business. How about old business?
Old business. At 2 council meetings ago, the city council took a vote on the design guidelines. It did pass for approval. So the consultant and I are working through some minor changes through DNR. They had some grammar errors that they caught and a couple of other edits. But hopefully it will go to the printer in the next week or so and then get you packets to start using. I'll probably start using them in January so there's a good, clear starting point. But part of our grant is printing of, I believe, 200 printed copies of those. So they'll be out for both the board members and public to stop by. And we'll make a bigger announcement once they're available in the office. Other news, the city council had their second reading on the survey update and minor modification to this ordinance. To use that, it will go to third reading at their next meeting.
Thank you. Any other old business from the board?
I know we've already voted on the minutes, but maybe I was looking at it wrong or somehow looking at the wrong document, but my name was all over those minutes and I was not in state.
Brooke, can you take a look at the minutes and make sure,
Yes, I will double check that and,
report back maybe next
yes,
meeting?
if I may, yes, please.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, and you were here in spirit.
There was somebody who looked very much like
we-
you, Owen.
We used your name quite a bit, Owen, just so you know.
In fact, you get a bar tab over at
Well, don't tell him that until he gets the invoice. All right, staff report. Are you ready for staff report?
Always.
Always.
All right, so, our September fast tracks, River Valley Resources, Mario Olson at 100 East Second Street, installed a 60 by 96 aluminum sign flat on the front of the building. Jay Wood at 108 East Main Street installed, a 31 by 35 flat metal sign on the front of the building above the main entrance, and a 26.5-inch vinyl sign on the front window. Ron Bladen at 110 West Main Street to replace existing deteriorated wood windows with aluminum clad wood windows on the second floor only. Chad and Sarah Renfro at 118 Ferry Street, replace existing straight wood staircase with a new wood staircase with a landing. So it's replace in kind with one slight modification for design. So the October 21 COA review, Dale Wells at 1037 West Main Street received a COA to build an attic addition to the house to house one room, half bath, 4 wood doors, 1 in the front and 3 in the rear, using wood, asphalt shingles, wood/aluminum clad windows, 8 exterior lights, and hardy board siding. That is in progress. Gary Leiter at 412 East Street to demolish a non-historic shed at the alley and build a 34 by 40 garage with cement floor, 10 siding, 10-foot overhead door, exterior security light, 4 vinyl 2-foot by 3-foot windows on each 40-foot side, and building height of 10 foot. That building has been completed. Christy Nichols and Patrick Lynch at 820 Fillmore Street, extend existing room by 3 feet on the north/east corner of home using same materials as existing. Tear off existing deck and replace with a larger deck of 22 by 25 feet with gable roof using same materials as current deck. That is in progress. Chris and Gina Lynn at 214 West 2nd Street to demolish 2 rear chimneys. That it has been done. And then Melissa and Todd Miller at 718 West 3rd Street to demo the current structure and rebuild onto the exact footprint, add on to the existing floor plan, either at the rear of home or Camelback. And it has been Camelbacked, and that is in progress. And that is all I have.
All right, any questions from the board? All right, with that, I think we are set to adjourn. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Do we have a second?
Second?
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
You know anything that's been happening with the church?
Pilgrim Church, they were sent something like this, the city's not gonna